beloved Ascension pioneers, and welcome to another one of my video updates. Today I really want to go deep into the topic of sacred divine feminine, the femininity, the aspect of the mother goddess, and what does it mean, and how we really utilize and work with this light of who we are in truth and our creation birth, and really in all life in creation, and how to really work with that in our ascension journey. It's important because now we're during the eclipse season, and during this time a lot of insights are going to come through. We're going to have a lot of revelations about this, and what are the next pivotal steps in our journey, because the feminine principle, which is not the same as being or looking feminine as an appearance, it's the principle of femininity is all about self-empowerment. It's about power, that core power, as you know, as the sacred divine goddess, that is the untamed, the pure wild potential for all life to blossom, to flourish, to experience itself, to seed itself, and then to blossom from that seed and to have that uncontrolled experience through that birthing process. So kind of like if you imagine the divine creator creating and planting those seeds, and then those seeds through the love of the mother becoming pure life force when they grow and expand. So this untamed raw goddess, that's that wild nature that we all have. It's just that we're not always tapping into it. And this nature we really deeply tune into when we move into our feeling bodies, when we move deep into the seat of our core feelings. And as you know, we become masters of the self when we embrace the feeling nature of our lives and of our reality. As you know, in the spiritual communities, a lot of the times the feeling aspect is just being rooted out as not important because it's mistaken for the lower emotional bodies. But to really feel is to alchemize yourself through the inner kundalini, sacred, divine, sacred sexual energy goddess self. I don't know how other ways to put it, but this is a really important step in our ascension, to embrace the divine feminine principle. The principle of femininity guides true flow. It's a spiraling movement energy, as opposed to, we know the sacred vertical alignment with the divine truth, which is the divine masculine archetype. It's that always in the vertical, always in the alignment, while the feminine principle is that horizontal, but it doesn't move out in a linear way. It moves out as a spiral, and it flows out, and it expands, and it flows. So the sacred feminine principle always flows. And we cannot really experience without embracing our inner feeling nature. So the human species the humankind, as you know, if I say species, it sounds too instrumental. But the humankind was created through a genetic lineage that embraces the feelings. And the inner feelings were always how I was given through the spirit, is that this feeling nature, the heart nature, came through the Pleiadian DNA lineage. And this lineage is very important. As you know, we have other lineages, the Victorian, the Syrian, our scientific brain, there's so many things that we all, of course, incorporate and embody. But it's the feeling side of our nature that makes us grow through these experiences, through feeling. And when we suppress the feelings, we are very prone to depression. As you know, I've said this many times, suppression leads to depression. And there was a lot of people, especially healers in the old ways, when they focused so much in giving and healing others, that they sometimes lost their self and their sense of self. So now with this powerful mother light emanating from the grand central sun, beaming here, illuminating all of life through reaching the Earth's core and then beaming up again, a lot of individuals are waking up now to this light, and a lot of them are asking themselves now, well, who am I now? Because the old just doesn't make sense anymore. It's this divine feminine, the mother, the femininity aspect in us that can have the power to transform all of life in creation like this. And it's either we move on with that current of new life, of that new empowerment, of a new journey and a new next cycle, or not. So the beings who are now really waking up to their feeling side of life, or noticing what they were still suppressing, they're embracing this feminine principle. And it's the sacred divine feminine principle that's now ruling over this planet because it was so suppressed in the ancient old ages. And we need to restore that balance back. And when we embrace that sacred divine feminine, the femininity, we don't embrace just being a woman or being a man that embraces his inner woman. It's beyond this. it's a force of life that's not personal to you or to me. You know, you are not it. Like somebody once was writing to me that there's this person who is, you know, the embodiment of Holy Spirit. And I said, well, you cannot contain the light of the Holy Spirit of all life and creation in one body vessel. It's just not like that. You can serve the Holy Spirit. You're devoted to serving that light and you're attuned to it as one with it. But you cannot put this in one vessel. So the sacred flow of all life, the sacred femininity principle, is that wild force that runs through us. We are always connected, attuned to it, because we're birthed through it. And when we embrace it in our lives, we embrace this flow. And we do so when we embrace the spiral movement of our lives. And as you know, our realities are a direct representation of how we feel. So it's the feeling body that's really important, because when we move into the feeling side of life, then we activate our heart, which lies in between our lower and our higher chakra system. And once we do this move forward, the column of light moves forward, and eventually it reaches the space of our higher heart, which you know is this essence here and moving behind us like our angelic wings. And with the aspect of this integration, when we embody the higher heart, I mean when we become activated through this initiation, this is when we really start walking ascension, physical ascension through the heart, through the higher heart. And in this level, we start embracing really that divine femininity principle of our own unique creation. And with this spiraling movement, I'm going to focus now more on the body and how this is expressed in our sacred sexual energy. Beings who are connected to their feeling side of life are very much connected with that inner chi energy. So you receive chi from above, and then the kundalini starts to rise from the earth, and they're always intertwining together as one. And at the same time, your inner feminine and your masculine principle are also balanced as one. I had a beautiful experience last week. I was in a mountaintop alone, and I just sat there like this to meditate, and I began spinning in one direction like I usually do, and then all of a sudden I noticed I started doing back and front and moving to the other side, and it was just really uncontrolled and natural, and I was just observing it and tuning into. And all of a sudden Spirit shows me, this is because you embody this sacred feminine and masculine now as one. And I instantly saw the geometry of the Vesica Pisces, which is that counter opposites, the polarized opposites in perfect balance. This is our primary creation in our individualized soul, the Vesica Pisces geometry. And I was noticing how my energy was attuned to it and how I was rotating like this. And then I suggested to all of you, if you don't yet do this like naturally, you can just visualize it, and eventually your body form will start flowing this. And you can do this as an exercise as well in meditation until it gets really natural. So when we embrace this principle, we can join the masculine, which was really much dominant in the previous ages here on the planet, with this sacred femininity, and embracing our bodies, embracing our feelings, not running away from them. And this will always be mirrored to us, of course, in our first relation to the world, which comes through our most intimate relationships. And the more we will expand in this light, then we will see how this flows in interaction with others as well. Pardon me, I noticed that there's still a lot of individuals sometimes that they can only function to a certain degree of feeling, or you know, either through attachment or, you know, codependency and these old patternings, or on the vice versa side, they can be very detached from everything that's going on. So our focus in Ascension integration is always balanced. So we're either not totally just neutral and removed and without compassion, or we're also not detached, attached, and, you know, forming codependent relationships. The sacred feminine is the space that moves in between all things. It's the space of creation when we really know how to be in the middle space of both polarities. So when we become an integrated and self-realized being. So what takes place here is we don't just go into one extreme or just go into another extreme. And we really know how to master ourself, and this is a space where self-mastery begins. So when you're in the space, for example, when you perceive everything as really detached, and you know how to be in your own bubble space, you know how to be yourself, but at the same time you can't have that same bliss when you move out into the outer world, then that's still something to master. Or the other way around, when you know how to be out there all the time, but you haven't yet mastered that inner realm to just be in your presence. This is something we're all learning to integrate, and this is what I call the core essence of self-realization and matter. To be a master, to be an integrated being, we merge spirit and matter as one. Because as Ascension pioneers, this is a different path. You know, all paths are unique, and Ascension pioneers have a path when they didn't just come here to be by themselves, sitting somewhere meditating on a rock and always being just in their own bubble. We came here to share light, to be the lighthouses, the beacons of light. I just wrote a beautiful article on this week, and you can see it on my webpage. And we came here to really, really be in that truth, and then also to go out into the world with this truth. Not just to be, you know, it's okay, it's very natural for us to be in the bubble when we're all by ourselves, when there's nobody out there requesting things from us, you know, wanting our assistance, sometimes, you know, putting their feelings to ours, and all these things. We really become a compassionate, loving, sacred, feminine, embracing all as it is in the moment being, before we really master that balance, that integration. It's becoming really important in our journey here. And what Spirit showed me is that the eclipse season is actually what's bringing that up to the surface. So we're noticing this. We're noticing when we're moving either in one or the other direction, but there's no middle space. And when you truly are an Ascension pioneer, you know you feel it, because all you want to do is share your light, to shine, not just to keep it for yourselves, what you have. You know, you don't just live inner bliss. You're here to do that penetration and seeding into the others, because we're all one, and you feel this, and that's why you're so devoted and committed to this path. And these new relationships we're forming and reunions, divine partnerships, are all about that merging and that sharing and that seeding in togetherness. So I'm going to move now to the other aspect, the sacred sexuality aspect, that I also want to enhance in this video, because it's really important. So there was a lot of beings who sometimes still were stigmating this aspect of sacred sexuality, because they were mistaking it with the old sexuality, which, you know, is all about performance and egoic driven desires and all of those things, which has nothing to do with that. The sacred sexual energy is related directly to the DNA. It's when you master yourself as an inner alchemist and you know how to work with the sacred sexual energy, and then you know how to work with the DNA, and it's the sacred sexual energy that flows through that spiraling movement, embracing the divine feminine principle of our life and creation that, you know, has the ability to birth it. And once you allow it to move through your body, that's when you also become the master of the DNA. And this is hard DNA shifting. So that's why it's so important to embrace this aspect of our inner polarities, not just that divine, masculine, vertical, the truth, you know, which is represented by the sword of truth, but also the spiraling movement, horizontally spiraling outwards in all directions, and sharing and seeding and shifting and altering, and all of this, the becoming, the blossoming. So in our sacred sexuality, I've noticed that a lot of beings who are not yet embracing the sacred femininity, they will have issues. I'm not just talking about sexual energy as in your sexual relations to others, in intimate bondages, but I'm talking about also how you don't express your creativity, because this is the source of all creativity that flows through you. Like I said, it doesn't belong to us, it just flows through us. Like, you don't embody the Holy Spirit, you serve it. You allow it to flow through you and express itself through you in a unique way. So with you embracing this spiraling movement, you really have to move deep into your body. And a lot of the times when we're too much out there, or we have fears, or we're not allowing ourselves to just sit with our feelings and to really process them by allowing ourselves to feel them, then we cannot embrace this principle, because to feel is a gift. Just recently I had a session and I explained to a divine companion that to feel sadness is not a root of suffering. Any kind of feeling that we say we associate with suffering, it's not the same thing. Our only suffering comes from our resisting the feelings and I'm wanting to change them or modify them through our control. When we don't like something, when we suppress it, when we resist it. So when we resist, we don't want to embrace, we suppress it, and we're in separation consciousness instead of unity consciousness in oneness. And first step is always dealing with our feelings by allowing ourselves to feel it. To feel sad. Think about it, if there was a moment when you felt sad. Sadness itself can have like this very awakening presence, or anger even. Anger can sometimes move us to do things in a new way, to motivate us even, on the level that's not self-destructive. It's not the same thing. But I mean it in a way that when you embrace these feelings, they will always have a message for you. If you don't embrace them, there will be no messages because you blocked it altogether anyway. So when we move deep into our bodies and we connect from our sacred womb, and the feminine I mean, the women in this embracing our femininity, we have it sometimes much easier because we literally embody the principle of the womb also in our physical structure. And that is why our gift is to share this with the men, to invite them in our sacred womb. And it means to allow them to embrace the space if they so want to embrace the space of the spiral, because a lot of men are still programmed to be linear. Their thinking is embraced as being linear, and they need to perform, they need to be the best, they need to lead, they need to support. All this is old. They just need to merge with the feminine principle. They need to be invited into the great zero space, the womb, which is sometimes called the darkness, the void. And a lot of people, they are afraid to embrace the cosmic womb, so to say, because they're so afraid of this nothingness. Because for so long they haven't felt their feelings, and they're afraid what's there on the other side, which is not even another side, it's just the depth. And sometimes this depth scares us because we have not been there for so long, because we've cut away from our source for so long that we perceive it as something too overwhelming, instead of just allowing ourselves the experience to dive into it. And to do that through our bodies, which were given to us as a gift, we can really ascend so fast through the human body once we understand the dynamics of ascension and the principles merging together, these polarities in oneness. So, moving back to that sacred sexual experience, when we have issues with this, to really embrace it and to embrace our feelings, we will block all areas of our lives. And we will start sabotaging different parts because we haven't processed the feelings. How can we process them and embrace them as they are, embrace their messages? We don't even allow ourselves to feel it. I said that the sadness itself is not suffering. Suffering comes when you don't like sadness, you don't want to be sad, you think you need to be positive, or all these things that people are saying about the positivism movement, is that we need to embrace everything as it is organically. And once we resist it, the suffering comes. The only way suffering comes is resistance. Experience of a certain feeling is not related to suffering. Our own resistance of it brings suffering. And as human beings, we know that all too well. So on the other note, when we start allowing ourselves to feel, to embrace the sacred femininity, we will see beyond that suffering, because we've allowed ourselves enough sacred space to just feel what's there. And we will see, wow, it's not even that overwhelming as I first thought. Probably, surely not. And when we do those first steps, we can start moving deep to the level where we will feel like we have this cord that always, like a baby that's always connected with that cord with the mother and her womb. We're always connected in a greater sense to the cosmic womb of all life. And once we enter this space, we will feel how safe it is to be us, to feel in our bodies, to see that we're always connected with this creative life force, with the sacred sexual energy that created all of life, all the supernovas, all the nebulas that birth forth new galaxies and stars and all life forms. And we will be attuned to that same life force, and only by allowing ourselves to feel, to see what's there. And through that natural connection with this Holy Spirit light, then things will start flowing. And we will start flowing with life more at ease. There are always going to be maybe challenges of how to balance this, what you already know in spirit, and how to live it in your earthly life, the integration process, the embodiment of our natural authentic soul. Sometimes it takes time, and we have to be really patient and compassionate with ourselves and others, because we're one. But it's just the steps. It's about the journey, not that goal. We need to be enlightened, we need to be ascended this way. It's allowing ourselves to be as it is, as we are in this each moment. And this is the sacred femininity archetype. And once we start embracing this life force, as we call this sacred sexual energy, will start flowing through us. And when we will come into union with another, our interaction will be based through that unity in the sacred sexual energy exchange, rather than giving, receiving, push and pull. I give you, you give me, the codependency, the attachments, all of that will just naturally wash away and be replaced by wisdom of our true self and the energy exchange that comes through the spirit light. And this is really important. So when we start embracing ourselves, and as a woman, for example, when we feel that in our womb, which is, we don't have just like crown chakra petals open up there, we also have a crown down there in our base chakra. Literally the shape is like a crown, and it opens, and it opens to inviting things in to remember themselves as they are. It's like the portal to divine remembrance, the archetype of the divine womb. And we cannot do this if we're all closed up. And if we don't even understand our bodies and how they are created in the general scheme of the all creation. And once we start to really feel our body as a direct representation of spirit and all its forms, and why women are shaped a certain way, why a male is shaped a certain way in their body forms, and how they line up together, what this is as in representation and meaning, because the man holds the sword of truth. It impregnates the seed of this divine logic, of divine ideals and visions, and then it brings them to the women, the feminine archetype, which can then birth all of this into creation. And together they're always one. But without embracing each other, we cannot really be as we truly are as co-creator beings, always aligned with the divine feminine and masculine, with the God and goddess within us, which are not personalized, like me, I am the goddess. No, I allow my goddess self to be expressed through me. That's the difference. And when women start doing work with their men, either their partners or lifelong partners, or when we start doing that work of embracing each other, coming together in unity, we will start consciously approaching each other through that invitation. And women can help men a lot with this principle, because in my own experiences, I've noticed that sometimes men will have issues with being invited into the nothingness, into the void. All of their fears will come up. Oh, what now? I'm stripped away. I'm naked. What do I do? They feel so stripped off of all of the old, and especially in the old, everything was about performance. And the woman can offer this gift of the sacred feminine, so that the men can also invite it within themselves, because we also have a physical form as a woman, although we all have an archetype in the spiritual sense in our creation matrix, energy matrix. So we have this work to do together. This will be our next cycle of evolution, how to really grow this way through the sacred femininity, and to really embrace it as we are, always express it. It's not how we look, although I can look this way and I can look feminine, but it's not the same as expressing my goddess self in my unique way. Not like my personal, like I shared with you before. So yes, there's a lot of integration on this level, and I really was feeling that the light of the eclipse is bringing this, and this is this divine sacred marriage. And that is why lately I've been receiving so many symbols about yin and yang, polarized opposites coming together as one and forming this uniqueness of who we are in truth. So I hope you resonated with some of this, and as always, my desire is to share this truth so that we not just know it, but we really work in our blossoming to embody it. So stay connected, stay radiant as you are, and I'll talk to you soon again as the next topic presents itself. And as always, so much love, wisdom, and power. Goodbye for now.